Today's episode of the Life in Attleboro podcast is proudly presented by Confidence Fitness. If there's one thing in life that we have at least a little control over, it's our health, what we decide to eat, and how much we decide to move our bodies. That's why I'm excited about this exclusive offer just for listening to the Life in Attleboro podcast. Confidence Fitness is offering a 2-week jumpstart program for just $99. It includes 6 small group personal training sessions so you can start building strength and muscle. You'll also receive their food and mood journal to get you thinking about what foods to eat and how they impact your body and mind. And you'll also get an in-body scan to measure your current body composition. All you have to do is go to lifeinattleboro.com and you'll see the link right there on our homepage. I'll also include the link in the show notes of this episode. Confidence Fitness is located at 453 South Main Street. Confidence Fitness. Strength for life, strength for sports. And now, on to the show. You are listening to the Life in Attleboro podcast, where we interview the city's most interesting people who are making a positive difference in our community. Hey everyone, I'm the host of the Life in Attleboro podcast, Mike Sullivan. Do you ever wake up and your back just hurts, or maybe your legs feel stiff or sore? I know I'm starting to feel it as I get a little older. I recently sat down with Todd Houghton, owner and CEO of Houghton Physical Therapy, located right here in downtown Attleboro. Todd shared so much valuable information when it comes to eliminating pain and doing your body some favors. He shared actionable items you can do from your own home, or if you sit at a desk all day like I do at work. Get ready to feel better physically and mentally. Here's episode 22 of the Life in Attleboro podcast. Okay, joining me now is Todd Houghton. He is the owner and CEO of Houghton Physical Therapy, which is located right downtown at 80 Park Street here in Attleboro. Todd, thank you so much for being a guest on the Life in Attleboro podcast.
Mike, thank you so much for having me. I'm really pumped to be on today.
I really appreciate your time, sir. So I want to start with a very specific incident, a moment that in some ways changed your life forever and actually inspired you to enter the profession of physical therapy. And you were just 15 years old when this happened. What was it?
Yeah, I was 15 years old. And so my dad grew up skiing and he was a really good skier. He took my sister and my mom and my cousin TJ, and we went up to Mount Sunapee up in New Hampshire. And of course, we get to the ski lift and I'm all excited. And my dad says, hey, make sure you wait at the top of the ski lift. So being a 15-year-old boy, of course, I didn't really heed to any of his cautions. And I got off the ski lift and bombed it down and I fell and I broke my leg. So a lot of good came out of that though, Mike. When I broke my leg, I was in a full hip cast for 4 months and then a below the knee brace and cast for a couple more months. And through that, I did my own rehab. And when I was going through high school over at Bishop Feen, after I went through my own rehab, my guidance counselor asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, what do I want to do about what? Being a teenage boy, just like being with my friends in the neighborhood. And he said, about college. And I said, I can tell you what I don't like. I don't like history and math and English. And he said, what do you like? And I said, I love science, people, and psychology. And he said, why don't you try this physical therapy thing? And the rest is history. So the rest is history for me getting into PT.
Interesting. Was that the ski accident? How many times had you been skiing before that?
I had, you know what? I think that might have been one of my first times. I hadn't been skiing in a while anyway, but that was one of my first times in a long time that I had been skiing.
Did you get the courage to go back out on the slopes? Have you been back out on the slopes?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Mike, that's a really good question. It took me, honestly, about 5 or 10 years to get back out on the slopes. And when I did get back out on the slopes, I still remember like it was yesterday. I think, I was probably in my 20s, my low 20s, so 7 or 8 years afterwards. And I remember I had him loosen up my bindings because I was nervous. Of course, if I fall, then something would happen again. And the first time I fell and my binding released my boot, I remember just lying down there in the snow and laughing like, oh good, gosh. I'm safe. So yes, but I did get back. And now, so my wife and I, fast forward now a couple of years, actually many years, and my wife and I got in 11-day skiing last year. And we just love ripping it up on the slopes now. So after all the mental challenges and the mental hurdles and the physical body, I am back loving skiing more than I ever have.
I love that. And perhaps the mental part was more challenging than the physical at that point after the injury.
Yeah, for sure. I would say the mental part was probably one of the more challenging. And that's why in the PT world, I love connecting the mind and the body. And for me, myself, I also have another business where I'm a mindset coach and I coach on the emotional, the spiritual, mental, and emotional aspects. And that's what I love to do is I love to blend both of those together. So you can say a lot of good came out of that incident for me back in the day when I was 15.
Wow, absolutely. So from there, like you said, your thirst for knowledge about physical therapy and the human body really took off. You went to college at Northeastern University. And then what happened from there professionally for you?
I did go to Northeastern. I had a great time. I love being in the Boston area. And I went through the co-op program over there. I've always been like a hands-on learner. And so that was a really good method for me to ingrain what I was learning in the classroom and to make sure, honestly, that I really liked and that I really was going to enjoy what I did in the physical therapy. Being when I was at Northeastern, I did 3 6-month co-ops and then I did 3 6-week affiliations. So that allowed me to get into a bunch of different types of physical therapy settings. Being in the different physical therapy settings, I saw pretty quickly, I worked in a couple of the big box places, that there wasn't really the connection that I thought was going to be there. When people were coming in for their elbow or their sprained ankle, it was about their elbow or about their ankle. And they weren't talking about like the stresses that people have in life. And they weren't talking about, could they even afford to go to physical therapy or could they afford to go out of work? So there was a lot of other things that I saw that wasn't happening. And that was a niche that I really enjoyed. I just wanted to get to know the patients at a deeper level. And then I started to find that people were getting better the more that I get to know them. And it wasn't necessarily what I was doing physically. It was a combination of both. So then fast forward, after I got out of school, I realized that just wasn't something that was so common. And that's when as I got into the years of treating, I realized that I wanted to make a difference in a different way. And that's how I ended up opening up my own practice.
How soon after you graduated did you actually open your own practice?
I started about 5 or 6 years after I graduated. I worked a few different jobs, a few different positions, and I was working in a hospital setting, and then I worked at an outpatient orthopedic practice right in Attleboro. So I've always had a couple of jobs. That's the way I was raised too. So I would work during the day and then I would work at a night at a clinic. And then I realized, you know what? I think I can do this. I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset and I wanted to deliver the care the way that I had seen that was successful. And because I couldn't find that in any other place that I had worked, that's when I decided to go on my own. So about 5 to 7 years out, I started to break away and do a little bit more part-time on my own. And then I opened up the business officially. It'll be 22 years in February, this coming February.
Wow. Congratulations, Todd. That's awesome. And was the original location the 80 Park Street? Is that?
No. So Actually, there was a doctor that I used to work with for a long time, Dr. Guild, and he was down at County Square, right down near with the orthopedic building right next to the Dunkin' Donuts. And so that's actually, I started working with him and he worked for, when I started my own practice, he said he would work for a year and help me feed me patients to get me going. So I was in that office. And I also had a room that I officially started down in the YMCA down on Pleasant Street. So I had a room with 4 tables, small room. It was probably like a 15 by 15 room. I had 4 tables. I bought a little eSTEM unit and I bought an ultrasound unit. So that's where I started doing that part-time on the weekends. Then I started doing it over in Dr. Guild's building. Then I merged them both, and I was down at 281 County Street full-time for about a year and a half. And then a year or so later, that's when I moved to 80 Park Street.
Gotcha. Congratulations. So that seemed like that was probably mostly yourself or a very small staff at that point. But fast forward to today, what does Houghton Physical Therapy look like as far as the number of patients and the number of employees?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is funny to think back. It was just me when I started. And so since then, we've grown. It's been a little bigger than it is now. It's been smaller than it is now. But right now, currently, we have, including myself, 15 team members. And we see roughly 350 visits per week in the clinic.
Wow, that is way more than I would have anticipated. So let's get to it. Because Todd, I hit a tough one this year. I'm 40 years old. I played high school basketball, baseball, ran cross country, high school, freshman year of college. I'm nowhere near the athlete I used to be 20 years ago, but I have a passion for staying in shape, keeping my free throws in check. But man, a day after using muscles that I normally don't use, I'm sore. So I also wake up with just some pain in the legs, and I think that might be an age thing, but maybe not. So can you share some insight with us for anyone who is listening that wakes up with pain or tightness anywhere? Are there any exercises or stretches that can not only help us that morning, but moving forward every other day as well?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of good points you just bring up there. I think the first thing overall is I would say that we just need to move. And I think as a society, especially coming off of COVID, most people just generally aren't moving as much as we could be. So I think the first thing is to find out something that you love. I know you mentioned basketball, and so find something that you love that's outside. Maybe find something with a friend to get into the habit of just doing the thing. If you like to play basketball, or you like to go for walks, really important to find a friend group, or maybe find a group that can help. Sometimes we all need at some level are some accountability partners. And I think starting with something you love and starting with a passion that you love to see if we can get you doing that certainly on a regular basis is a really big deal. I think some people don't know where to start. I think starting is just as simple as movement, and we want to find ways to move our body. So if you've been a member, like at a YMCA, I think a place to start is even just get on the treadmill, get on the bike, walk outside, many different ways just to start moving. Motion is lotion, as one of my mentors told me a while back.
Nice.
I think something people also don't realize, Mike, is that living with pain isn't necessary. For example, say you had pain in your elbow and you say, let's be there for a while. Do you have pain in your knee? No, my knee feels fine. Great. That's normal to not have pain. So I think pain isn't necessary. There's always a solution. That would be the second thing I'd say. There's always a solution. We just have to find out where we are. We have to find out what the issue is. And you want to seek somebody that can help you in that journey. Another thing is you're not alone. As a 40-year-old man, it's pretty common that things don't work as well as they used to, do they? So it's common. A lot of these issues that people have, they're really common for us. It may seem something like an abnormality to you, but this is something that we see every day. And I think the fourth thing is there is a solution that can work for everyone. Many people say, I don't know if this is going to work for me. Maybe I need to put up with it. I am 40 or I am 50 or I am 60. So the thing is that there's always an answer. There's always a solution. And the first step is just to get moving.
You brought up a ton of good points there, and all four of them are beautiful, but accountability partner, I love it. And motion is lotion. Never heard of it. Sticking with that. I love it, Todd. Thank you. So you mentioned motion. I sit at a desk for about 9 hours a day at my full-time job. And again, I like to get some steps in at work. Sometimes I'll go hide for a minute and just do 20 quick push-ups just to get the blood flowing. But for someone who sits a lot at work, I also have a standing desk that I started implementing. But what are some things that we can do to help our bodies avoid potential health hazards that come along with sitting all day at work? And I want to ask about posture too, because as you can see right now, I don't have good posture when I'm sitting down. So what can I do there?
Those are some great questions there. I think the biggest thing that I talk with people a lot is you hear me talk about posture with everything. So whether you're not, again, like going through the pandemic, a lot more people are coming in with like chronic stuff, chronic neck pain, chronic shoulder, chronic elbow, chronic knee, and back pain is probably the most common thing that we see. And really it all starts with the spine. So paying attention to your posture is a really big deal. Now, what does that mean? Most people have heard of nerves that come out of your spine. My belief as a physical therapist and me personally is everything is related to the spine. So if you were coming to see me, Mike, and you had a tennis elbow, I know that I need to work on the 6th vertebrae in your neck because a postural change can affect the elbow. I know if you have plantar fasciitis in your foot or if you have an Achilles tendonitis, I know that I need to work on the L4, the 4th lumbar vertebrae, and the L5, the 5th lumbar vertebrae in your back as being usually the primary cause for both of those injuries. So when we don't think, like our mom or dad told us, sit up straight or stop slouching, they didn't know why they were saying it. I think they were doing it more from like a regimented perspective, listen to me, but they actually had it right. So I think working on our posture is one of the most important things. Now, what are some simple things we can do? Say you just sit at a desk, I have a monitor here, and the monitor is at the right height for me. I have a keyboard. The keyboard is the right height for me. I also have a standing desk here, and I've actually perfected being able to stand up as I'm on a call, which is fun. So I have to levitate a little bit as I stand up.
It's impressive.
Having the proper chair is a big deal. Having your feet flat on the ground is a big deal. Having a lumbar support. So if we look at the body, we would want to make sure you're in good alignment from your head all the way to your toes and you're supported, where you should feel comfortable sitting at it. So that's one piece, getting the posture. The second piece is, just like you said, you'll get up and you go do a couple push-ups. I'm up in my loft above my garage here, and I can do the same thing. I have a foam roll in the other room that I can grab. So even taking 5 minutes every hour or two to reset your body is a really big deal, because that resetting of your body is going to stop the overuse injuries, the staying in the static positions, and then the chronic pain that can come from that.
Wow. So much good information. I just learned a ton from you, Todd, right there. So thank you so much. I'm going to keep picking your brain then if you're going to keep giving all this good stuff. Halloween just wrapped up. We are recording this on November 1st for our listeners. So as it was 70 plus degrees, my goodness. But as we approach the colder months coming up, maybe eventually, what are some of the most common conditions and injuries that you and your team will start to see with those colder months? And how might we be able to avoid some of them?
That's a really good question. Over this coming season, we've seen a lot of people. If you look outside, it's raining leaves. I know, looking in my backyard now, I get out and mow to get all the leaves up. But the raking, the twisting, the bending, the turning. So raking, low back injuries are common. If you're finishing up doing your gardening and you're having to clipping your bushes back, you might see people on their knees a lot. So they might develop some knee soreness and knee pain as well. As it gets closer to the winter, you're going to go to pull out a snowblower that you pulled out in a while. So the heaviness of that can be a little bit. And even you're thinking just pulling the snowblower to start, that weird type rotary motion, we can get shoulder issues from that. So a lot of low back, hips, shoulders. And then if you're going to be out in the yard at all for a period of time, low back soreness, again, from staying in those static positions. A recap would be a lot of shoulder, a lot of knees, a lot of back, and also some neck things going on.
All right. We'll try to avoid that. So thank you so much for all that information. But when is it time to say, okay, I've tried this on my own. I've tried what Todd's taught me here, but I'm still in pain. I'm still uncomfortable. I need a professional to help me out. When is it time for someone to call Houghton Physical Therapy?
That's a great question. I think that the answer would be yesterday, because if you've already found that you're feeling something, again, one of the things that we just talked a few minutes ago, living with pain isn't necessary, and it's also not normal. So if someone has never been to physical therapy before, I would say something we offer is a free discovery visit, because I think one of the biggest things that we want to focus on and being so involved in the community is trust. We want people to trust us. We put a lot of content out. I put a lot of videos out because I want people just to say, wow, I didn't know that was possible. So the first step is trusting someone, finding someone you trust. When you come into the office, what we're going to do is we're going to break down a couple of how long have you had the symptoms? How long have you had the pain? What have you noticed? When did that happen? What weaknesses have you noticed? So we're going to break down what's the cause of it, because we want to learn right from the beginning. If you were outside raking or you did too much, raking isn't a bad thing, but raking for 8 hours straight on a day when you haven't done it might not be the best.
Sure.
Bending at your waist isn't a bad thing, but if you do it all the time and weed for 3 hours, that might be something you want to pay attention to. One of the things that one of my mentors talks about in the physical therapy world is pain is caused by stiffness. Stiffness is caused by weakness. What you're going to find, or what we find, is it always comes back to the body. The stress that we put on the body is outweighed by the amount of strength that we have in our body. So if you're putting too much tension for something that can't take it, that's how the body breaks down. So pain is the first sign. That stiffness is usually the first sign. So if you have stiffness, let's get you taken a look at right away. If it gets to the pain point, that's a little bit farther down along the line, then you definitely need to get that take a look at for sure.
Interesting. Again, learning so much, Todd. Thank you very much. So I appreciate you sharing all this insight with us. I got a lot of value from that. I know our listeners will too. So I want to talk about your company's involvement in the community. You just mentioned this, but I see Houghton Physical Therapy all over the city, all over social media, but all over the city, helping out to support so many good causes. Why do you take that part of the business so seriously?
That's really a good question. I think it just comes back. It comes back to my childhood. It comes back to just the way I was raised. So my mom and dad always said, we just got to give and stay humble. And so that's just the mantra that I live. My belief is I want to help everyone. I want to help everyone realize the potential that I see in them. that's what I want. And I want to help people realize that everything's possible. I don't see any barriers in my life, Mike. If I see something that comes up, I'm going to figure out a way to get over it. So I want to show people that everything is possible. So how do we do that? Again, just the background of just giving and tithing of my time and in the Boy Scouts and all different things that I grew up as a kid playing on the athletic and sports teams. So my parents raised me just to give back in the community. And I think it's a great way to get our message out there about the profession. But also, it's just a great way to connect with people. However we can get our message, I'd like to go. I grew up in North Attleboro, so I went to all North Attleboro schools until high school, and I went to Bishop Fee. And any chance I can get in front of, I used to do career day in North Attleboro. I did that for 8 or 9 years at the North Attleboro Middle School. And I've gone back to teach a couple classes at Bishop Fee, and I've done them at Attleboro High School. I've done them at North Attleboro High. Any chance I can get to bring awareness to the field of physical therapy, but mostly to realize that everything is possible in our lives.
That's a great answer, Todd. You just touched on this perhaps, but what message would you like to share with our listeners today? Is there anything else that haven't been mentioned yet that you'd like to add? Anything else you'd like our listeners to know at all? Yeah,
I guess a message that I would like to have is that what's really important, the only reason that we usually see people in physical therapy is pretty much one word, and that's neglect. We've neglected to take care of ourselves. We've neglected to do what we know is successful. We've neglected the little things that turn into big things. We've neglected the stuff that makes us happy in life. And the antidote for that, or what's going to help with that, is self-care. So I would love everybody to find their own way on their self-care journey. And what is self-care journey, or what does self-care include? Of course, that includes physical therapy, whether it's a chiropractor, physical therapy, personal trainer, massage therapist, reflexologist, hanging out with your friends. The more we can take care of ourselves, and the more that we know that we need to be number one in our lives, the more we can give to other people. So that's what I would say is I'd love to see everybody step up what they can do for themselves, because when our cups are full, then we can give and help more people.
That is a great lasting message right there, Todd. Todd Houghton, owner and CEO of Houghton Physical Therapy, located at 80 Park Street in Attleboro. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Life in Attleboro podcast. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mike. It has been a blast. Thank you so much.
Wow. Todd shared so much great information, and I hope you found it valuable. And if you think it's time to get some help from the professionals, I'll put a link to Houghton Physical Therapy's website in the show notes of this episode. Hey, I want to tell you about our new sponsor, Houghton Accounting Services. If you're a small business owner, you know how much of a hassle it can be to keep track of every penny earned and every penny spent. But thankfully, Houghton Accounting Services is on a mission to heal your headaches and fizzle your frustration when it comes to crunching those pesky numbers. Houghton Accounting Services has helped local businesses for more than 7 years. That's when Nicole Houghton, a proud mother of twin girls, launched her business. She's a QuickBooks Pro advisor with tons of awards to her name. If you mention the Life in Attleboro podcast, you'll get 10% off for your first 6 months. If you'd like to support a small business owner in our city, just tap the link in the show notes of this episode and Nicole will be in touch. Houghton Accounting Services. A great bookkeeper should be an asset, not an expense. More than 500 people have signed up for the Life in Attleboro email list. Are you one of them? If not, you're missing out on exclusive benefits, including early access to every new podcast episode, special savings at Attleboro restaurants and businesses, behind-the-scenes videos and insight, and you'll stay in the know about cool events in our great city. Just go to lifeinattleboro.com, and you'll see the sign-up display right there on the homepage. And if you know someone who would make a great guest on our podcast, please shoot us an email at lifeinattleboro@gmail.com. That's it for today. Life in Attleboro is a great thing. Support our community, promote positivity, and make a stranger smile. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Life in Attleboro podcast.